Now, the IDF is very much aware of reports. The IDF is very much aware of reports of casualties and is reviewing the incident. But let me make a couple of points very clear. Firstly, the IDF is doing everything in its power to allow Gazans to get to the humanitarian aid. The IDF is not preventing the arrival of Gazans at humanitarian aid sites. Indeed, we are encouraging it. The warning shots were fired away from the aid distribution point in response to the threat perceived by the IDF troops. We've said many times already that the IDF has been facilitating the independent operation of this American NGO, the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, precisely to ensure that aid reaches civilians and not Hamas. We're cutting that lifeline to Hamas, the terrorist organization, which steals the aid and uses revenue, which it obscenely charges Gazans to get that aid, which they should get for free, and uses that revenue to pay for more terrorists. Let's be clear. Israel is not preventing Gazans from accessing humanitarian aid, and the IDF did not fire at civilians in or near aid distribution zones. Now, from the incident on Sunday, the IDF's initial investigation confirms that serious accusations made on Sunday in so much of the media, they were based on Hamas propaganda. The IDF has already proved them, has put out materials proving them to be false and baseless. Now, we say this respectfully to colleagues in the media. We urge the media, do not amplify Hamas disinformation. Verify before reporting. The IDF operates in full accordance with international law, taking every single precaution to avoid civilian harm, even while under threat. And our forces on the ground will continue to defend themselves and facilitate aid delivery to civilians, to Gazans, and not to Hamas. Lastly, before we go into your questions, to Boulder, Colorado, the Prime Minister and the entire state of Israel pray for the full recovery of the wounded in this vicious terror attack that took place in Boulder, Colorado. Israel trusts the American authorities will prosecute the cold-blooded perpetrator to the fullest extent of the law, and will do everything possible to prevent future attacks against innocent civilians. It's very clear by now. These are anti-Semitic attacks, and they're happening around the world. And we are also very clear, and we know that they are a direct result of the blood libels against the Jewish state and its people, and this must be stopped. Hamas invent lies, the media unfortunately repeat them, and the result is Jews attacked, murdered, or with Molotov cocktails thrown at them. Okay, that's the end of our briefing here today. I will now take your questions. Please put your questions in the chat together with your news outlet, and we'll take some of these questions. First question here is a question about Saudi foreign minister and other foreign ministers who were planning a visit to Ramallah. Thank you for that question, Carrie Khan. That's a question from Carrie Khan at NPR regarding the Saudi foreign minister and other Arab foreign ministers who were planning a visit to Ramallah. Carrie, can I direct you to the foreign ministry who made a statement about that over the last few days, and they can give you the latest from Israel on that issue. Okay, there's no other questions here. Thank you for joining us here today. We'll have another briefing again shortly. We're available for interview or for any questions in the meantime. There's another question here. Question here from Julia Frankel at AP. Regarding the Palestinians that media reported were killed on Sunday and Monday and today while trying to access aid in Gaza in similar circumstances each time, according to witnesses we've spoken to and doctors who've treated casualties, why have we seen this happen repeatedly? What are the coordination plans with the GHF and the IDF in terms of routes people can go down to avoid such incidences in the future? Do the IDF and GHF coordinate to this effect? Thank you for that question, Julia Frankel from ABC. I think I've addressed all of those issues quite specifically in my briefings. But I just want to reiterate a couple of points about why media reporting of this is so important, is so very important, because it is clear that Hamas are trying their hardest to keep their own people, Gazans, away from the GHF distribution sites. They are trying their hardest. Why? Because that is their last hold on power. That is the way which we lift the hand of Hamas off the neck of ordinary Gazans, is by cutting them out of the aid process and getting it directly to them so that Palestinian families are given food to eat. Not in bags of flour, but in boxes individually for each family, with food for a week, and to allow them to get the sustenance which they deserve, getting it out of Hamas's hands. Now, we've seen over many incidences, media, via Hamas, unfortunately, giving false and fictitious accounts of what's been going on. I can give you a number of examples from the top of my head. October 17th, 2023, media giants like the BBC and the New York Times ran headlines saying that Israel had bombed the Al-Ali hospital and killed 500 people. Days later, it was proven it was a rocket misfired by Islamic Jihad, not the IDF, that caused the explosion. But by then, of course, the damage was done. Hamas had lied. The media, unfortunately, parroted, and Israel was blamed. And that incident was timed specifically to prevent the visit of President Joe Biden to come to Israel, because it happened on the eve of that actual visit. It was designed to stop President Biden visiting this country by creating this international outrage. But this has been Hamas's design. I'll give you another example. In May, just this year, the BBC reported that 14,000 babies in Gaza would die within 48 hours. That claim was from a UN official. Of course, it was false. Now, the BBC later admitted it was misleading, but by then, Hamas had its propaganda victory. Just on Sunday, just a few days ago, on June 1st, Hamas claimed Israel had killed 31 people at an aid site in Rafah. The New York Times and others ran with it. Then we've released an Israeli drone footage showing that Hamas gunmen opened fire on the crowd. Now, did the media lead with that correction? No. The damage has been done, unfortunately. Or in March 2024, I can give you loads of these examples. Al Jazeera aired a woman claiming that the IDF soldiers had raped and murdered women at the Al-Shifa hospital. She later admitted she'd made it all up. Al Jazeera quietly deleted the video, but the lie went global. On November 15th, 2023, a BBC anchor falsely claimed that Israel was targeting medical teams and Arabic speakers in Gaza. In fact, the IDF brought both to protect civilians. The BBC later apologised, but only again after the falsehood had made the headlines. In February this year, the BBC released a Gaza documentary narrated by the child of a Hamas deputy minister. The BBC went so far as to pay Hamas for the use of that deputy minister's child. BBC money going directly to a terrorist organisation. And of course, after public pressure, the BBC pulled the film. They admitted the mistake, but not before airing this Hamas propaganda on primetime television. So we're asking you, all media, that you have a supreme responsibility. If you routinely claim that Israel is intentionally targeting women and children, but are using the data of Hamas when you know for sure that this data is false, even the BBC has had to walk that narrative back. This isn't journalism. It supports Jew hatred. It is a modern-day blood libel. Now, these aren't isolated errors. This is a pattern. Hamas lies, the media amplifies, and Jews are murdered in DC, or they're set alight in Boulder, Colorado. And then maybe there's a correction, maybe there isn't. But by then, unfortunately, Israel's reputation has been torn.